Aloha loves, welcome. My name is Digmera and I am your host. I believe it is every woman's birthright to have financial independence and freedom. I am a self-made multimillionaire. Now I work with others to do the same. Let's get started.
Aloha loves. Earlier this week, I had one of my private clients, one of my one-on-one clients on my podcast. And what you're going to listen to is that interview. My client's name is Amy Belair. She is a published author. She is an oracle. She is an amazing channel. And I have been working with her privately for about close to 2 years now in the area of money and wealth and her finances. And obviously, one thing that I do is keep actually even the people I work with, unless they step forward and say that they would like to share their story, I keep the people that I work with private and I keep all of their finances private. But Amy felt called to share her experience of what it's been like working with me, because her and I both know that by her sharing, it will inspire other women to come forward, because there is so much shame in the area of money and wealth. And she had to work through a lot of her own shame. And she said, I really don't mind coming on and sharing to really help other women to feel inspired and feel empowered to come forward and share their story and to get the support that they need so that they can soar, so that they can fly, so that they can make big shifts and changes in their financial landscape. So, without further ado, here is a copy of that interview. Enjoy.
Aloha and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Thrives. Today I have a super special treat for you. I have my dear friend and soul sister, Amy Belair, on the show. Amy is an Akashic Oracle, channel and translator of multidimensional Lightcodes. She is the host of the Third Eye Awakening podcast and the original channel, and co-author of the book, The Priestess Transmissions. Amy facilitates spiritual and psychic awakenings, activations, and ascension through her work as an Akashic mentor and teacher. Her sole work is to help return our lost memories so that we can reclaim our psychic gifts and our divine creational powers, and to remember who we really are. Aloha, Amy. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Same. I'm so excited to do this. So, we have a whole list of things that we're going to talk about today, but I thought we would start with just riffing a little bit on money dates. And I know that that's something, I know that when you saw that concept, me posting about that concept, I know that that's something that really intrigued you. So, I guess I wanted to start by maybe just explaining a little bit about what a money date is, and then maybe just get your perspective on it and what your experience has been, doing a money date and working with me. But so, what is a money date for those that are not familiar with to that concept? So, a money date is it's just a nicer way to describing a in the corporate world, it would be a financial meeting. But a money date is essentially a meeting that you have with yourself or with your spouse where you really tend to and steward over your money. And I believe in making it be something that's just a little bit more fun, a little bit more exciting, letting it feel a little bit more romantic and alluring, because there is so much, I think there can be so much density and stress and fear around sitting down to work with our finances, that doing this huge kind of perspective shift around it, I think can just really make it stick for a lot of us. So the way that I describe starting a money date is and to get excited about it is, I say, set the tone, set the mood. Light a candle. And if you don't have a favorite candle, I say, go to the store and purchase one that will infuse you with that sense of what would it feel like for you to already be on the other side of having that financial independence and freedom, right? What would it feel like to be a millionaire? To have that huge net worth already here. So you buy that candle that already embodies that, and you bring that home and you light it. And then you put on your comfy clothes and you brew that cup of tea in your favorite, porcelain cup, or you pour yourself some, beautiful seltzer water infused with some frozen raspberries or blueberries or strawberries. And then you sit down and you put on your favorite music. And if you still feel resistance, like this is something that you don't want to do, you set a timer. Well, set a timer anyway, but you set a timer for 20 minutes or 22 minutes and you say, come what may, I'm just going to sit here for this amount of time and just really tend to and steward over my finances. So that is essentially the kind of the start of a money date. And Amy, I wanted to just get your thoughts on it. What do you think about that concept?
Well, I think it's a beautiful concept, and I'm happy to be here to share my journey and my perspective because when I first heard about a money date, I felt so much resistance that I couldn't even I understood it, and I was at a place, this was before we met, where I couldn't fathom sitting down and looking at my money. It was partly because of, like the fear of not having enough money and like years and years and years and years of not having enough money and often being overdrawn and essentially like looking at my debt straight in the face. That was extremely intimidating. But what was also intimidating is that I have difficulty with numbers and spreadsheets, and I had I had this really traumatic memory from being in grade 7 when I was kind of like humiliated in front of my class at the blackboard because I couldn't solve a math problem. And that it sounds so silly, but it wasn't silly. And it really lodged itself in my nervous system. And my psyche would do anything to protect me from feeling that again. So I was always afraid of numbers and intimidated by them. And I just it would reduce me back to that 12-year-old version of myself that felt totally incapable and like I couldn't do it. And so money dates made sense to me, but I couldn't get past that trauma response and the feeling of overwhelm and the perception of myself that I am not capable. And so I really didn't start doing money dates until I started working with you, and and in so many ways still need, I need my money date to be with you. Like I'm
Mhm.
so much better with it now, where I'm at a point, and I kind of arrived here before we started working together, where I could look at my numbers, like I could open up my bank account and look at it and not feel stressed out. Not feel disassociated, but I still am working through the vestiges of the pattern and the excuse that I don't have time, I have too many things on my plate, blah blah blah. And so I still even need you and I
Mhm.
need to be with you to look at my numbers and pull the data that needs to be pulled, but I always feel a million times better and lighter every single time that I do it. And it doesn't matter whether I'm in a surplus or I'm in a deficit. Like it really doesn't matter what the numbers are. I feel so much better every time I have a money date. And as you said, I tend to and steward over the money that is currently in my field and it's in my energetic field, but it's being represented in my bank account, or multiple accounts. But when I spend time with it and tend to it and take care of it, I just feel so, so, so good.
That makes me so happy that, to hear you say that. It's funny. I'm remembering the last meeting that you and I had, and I know it ended up being it ended up being a working meeting, and you had some things that you needed to do. And I'm like, and I said, you do that while I work on your other things. And I remember it took you no time at all to get it done. And you're like, that was so easy. That was so easy and quick. Yeah. So it's true. It's just showing up and doing it. And that's not a there's no issue with that. It's to get the support where you need it and then just to get going, to start moving, to move beyond that resistance and density. But it's easier said than done, right? It's easier said than done.
It is,
Okay.
but I'll say like I believe that I needed this support. Like in the grand scheme of all the things that I have invested in to, leave my old story and my old timeline and create this new amazing one that I'm in. Um, some things have been there are some things I've invested in that I didn't necessarily need. This is one thing that I needed. I actually needed support of somebody who could help me feel safe and unjudged and just like be with me through that trauma response so I could actually start to change my patterns. So I definitely strongly suggest that if you relate to even a little bit of what I'm saying and it's hard for you to prioritize a money date, investing in support is so, so beneficial to be able to interrupt that pattern. And I would say that money dates I see them as necessary, even though I still have leftover programming that causes me to deprioritize it. I can very clearly see that it is essential. Like you really can't build actual wealth if you won't look at your money.
Oh, I 100% agree. I have regular money dates and I love it. It's how I steward over my money. The same way that I work with my clients, one-on-one, I carve out Friday, typically Friday afternoon to do money dates, and I do money dates with myself. So I do three different types of money dates. I do a money date just with my own personal finances and investments. I do a money date for my business where it's myself and Thrives meeting. And I also do a money date with my partner, with my spouse, right? Three completely different money dates. And I agree with you. I think it's crucial. It's how I've been able to systematically create such a large net worth for my family. And at this point, it just seems easy. And what I say is if you cannot imagine yourself holding $1 million, then you just scale down. You start where you're at. I will meet you where you're at, or you meet yourself where you're at. Get the support you need and you just start. And I tell you that that's the feeling of having a million or having multiple millions. It doesn't really necessarily feel any different for me than it did when I was holding $100 or $1,000 or $10,000 or $100,000. It's just incremental scaling that you're doing and continuing to just feel safe at that level. So, um, the next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, Amy, is the energetics of money and wealth. And I feel like we started kind of getting into it a little bit, right? But the one thing, and I know this is something that you say that, that you really appreciate about me, is that I approach money from a spiritual perspective, right? That I not only my work, when I work with my clients, it's not just working with strategy, and of course, strategy is necessary, but also working with energetics. And I think both are necessary, right? And at this point in my life, I could not imagine myself working with, and this is part of the reason why I actually don't work with a lot of financial advisors. And now I better understand, now that I understand energetics around money, um, and I really value spirituality. This is part of the reason why I actually don't work with a lot of financial advisors. I've really tried in the past, and now I better understand why they were just never really a match for me. Um, do you want to talk about that a little bit, just about about energetics and just your experience with blending energy and strategy together and why it's so important for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that was a big barrier for a long time for me too to actually getting the level of support that I needed is that I really can't I'm just such a spiritual person, and I always have been as such an inherent part of my identity and my nature that to only talk about money in terms of numbers and like as we call it like as part of the 3D matrix, so to speak, just felt so suffocating and it felt like it didn't it to think about it only in those terms doesn't feel true. It makes it feel flat and like a tool, yeah, a tool of the matrix. And then I
Mhm.
don't want to engage with it. And I feel I get more stuck in the resentment of like, oh, this is taking up my time and like this none of this is real and blah 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 blah. And what really changed it for me was to start to learn about money and wealth as an energy and to be able to relate to it as an energy. And like my experience, so my story kind of is that I come from a middle class family, so I had a safe childhood. I always had, 3 meals a day, a roof over my head. I was very lucky and comfortable in that way. So I didn't have that kind of deep embodied experience of scarcity in terms of money trauma. But my grandfather did, and I had to hear about it all the time. Was always like, well, what are you going to do for money? What are you going to do for money? What are you going to do for money? So I inherited somebody's intense money scarcity. And I I wanted to avoid it for that reason. I didn't want to think about it. It felt like soul sucking, and like in order to receive the money that I need to survive and thrive, I would have to basically like betray my soul on a certain level and like compromise, my incarnation and my reason for being alive. And I am that intense that that is how I think. It's that black and white for me. Like I'm here for a reason, and it's definitely not to work at a job that doesn't fulfill me. But I felt like I had to. And so I was in this weird push-pull with money. And I started this business as an Akashic Records reader, which was a huge leap of faith for me. I had no savings. I had over $1,000 or $100,000 in debt, zero savings. Like, I mean, not a dollar in savings, nothing. And I just knew I had to do it. So I did it. And I threw myself into an intense pattern of scarcity, which took about 13 months to overcome. And what really shifted it for me was to truly understand that money and wealth are an energy, and it's so much more than the arbitrary numbers that we see on a screen. Like once upon a time we interacted it more with it more in terms of like dollars, dollar bills and coins and checks and things like that. Nowadays it's mostly digital, and it's actually just an energy. It is an energy of abundance. It's an energy of provision. It's feeling like you are cared for. Your survival is ensured. You are able to do what you're here to do in the world. And when I really connected with money as an expression of our creativity and our love, and the love of the divine, that allowed me to quantum leap my income from being, I think it was roughly $40,000 through my business in the first year to my first $18,000 month and then a $30,000 month. And then I just like stayed in the six-figure range ever after that. But I couldn't actually shift into receiving money in that way until I understood it as like a spiritual energy. And I mean, I'm still a work in progress. Like we're still working together, you know? Now we're working on my ability to hold the money and hold it in my field. But it's to me I have to understand it as a spiritual energy first and foremost, and then work on it in the more like 3D tangible way of managing the numbers and understand the limitations of the numbers and stewarding it more intentionally.
Think that's such a beautiful story. I love that. I know your numbers, obviously, but I didn't realize that it lined up that that's when you really like quantum leapt and you've stayed there. And I think that's just such a beautiful beautiful thing that you're able to do that inner work to do it, right?
And it was totally the inner work, I'll say too, because my strategy has not changed between then and now. And my strategy is no different than it was in that first year of business. For me, I had to dissolve my resentment towards money and my fear of not having enough money and just tune into it and understand it as an expression of essentially, like, I'm comfortable using the term God. So an expression of the love of goddess and God. Like I just had to move into this space of understanding that I am so loved, as we all are, but I can only do it for myself. I'm so loved that I could feel the divine just pouring energy into me, abundance energy to support me. And one of the ways it manifests is as money. And when I was able to shift into that and stop pushing money away and stop resenting it, then I was able to receive it. And so, yeah, for me, it really was that internal energy shift rather than any kind of strategy change.
I love that so much. I love that so much because not enough people in, in the traditional financial world talk about that. It's so heavily focused on strategy and they don't, not enough focus on the energetics and having to just really, the value of working through the energetic pieces that are holding us back, whether that's, ancestral stuff, whether that's, any kind of worthiness that we're, our feelings of unworthiness, like we're not worthy to have and to hold large sums of money, and that we really are, I say it is our birthright. It is every person's birthright to have that financial independence and freedom, to feel completely liberated and infinitely supported to do the work that we're here to do, right? And that's why people work with you to figure out really what is their soul purpose, but to deeply feel like once we know what our sole purpose is, to just be able to really fly with that and just have this feeling of safety and liberation that we can do it and that the universe will support us through financial compensation. We should be wildly compensated. We're so deserving of it. For us to be able to not feel stuck in a 9 to 5. And there's nothing wrong with 9 to 5. 9 to 5, supports us. And for many people, it's the right fit for them. But if it's not the right fit for you, it's being given permission to go ahead and do what your soul's calling you to do, and to be more than adequately, to be wildly compensated for it.
Absolutely. It's just about what really is lighting us up. Like if what lights somebody up is their 9 to 5 job, or it comes in the format of a 9 to 5 job that is salaried, amazing. Like there's no reason not to do it. Everybody doesn't need to be an entrepreneur. It's definitely in my soul blueprint and yours to be
Yeah.
entrepreneurial.
Yes.
But that isn't like the guaranteed key to success either, right? It's just like understanding exactly what you said. It's our birthright. It is not only our birthright, but it is the plan for us to express our unique set of soul gifts and aptitudes and passions and share it with the world and be financially compensated in exchange for that sharing. Like, I just feel that the universe is so benevolent and wants us here so much and wants the true, fully expressed version of us. The universe is not celebrating for all of us who are slogging away at a job that we hate because we feel like that's what we have to do. That's not what the universe wants. The universe is so like, I just want to compensate you. You just have to learn how to allow me to do so. Just, and it's a tall order, but that's why I like sharing my story, because I did it. I did it. I figured out how to receive compensation. I mean, like I always say, nobody gave me permission to start this business. Nobody in my life ever in a million years would have been like, I think you could like make $1 million working as an Akashic Records reader and teacher and a podcaster. That that's not a business plan that makes any sense, but it doesn't matter because it's my sole purpose, it's my sole blueprint. And I also could have struggled and financially failed at it if I hadn't chosen to rework my relationship with money and clear the things that were blocking me from receiving money. Like those two pieces have to go together, in my opinion. Like understanding your soul purpose and letting yourself do it, and then also seeing your current relationship with money and how that is resulting in your experience with money and learning how to work through those
Mhm.
blocks and those wounds and programs.
No, I agree with that. I love that. Let's talk about spirituality a little bit because so Amy did a soul aligned business blueprint reading for me. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I am so grateful for this. For anybody listening who has never worked with Amy, I would highly recommend it. Everything from her Priestess Transmissions book, like completely changed my life. Uh, Being in her psychic activation course shifted me again in huge ways. Her how to read your Akashic what's the name of the that how to read your Akashic records, or what is the name of
Yeah.
that class? How to read your that one in itself, that course, I tell Amy that course is so deceiving because it looks like just this little course, this 1 day little master class, but that has created such powerful shifts in me, and it is such a powerful tool. I mean, she essentially in this quote unquote little class teaches you how to go into your own Akashic records, and I do it regularly now, and that is just such a beautiful gift. But most recently, she surprised me with a soul aligned business blueprint reading. And it's essentially what Amy did was she went and she looked at my astrology birth chart, at my tropical birth chart, and she looked at my human design. And she went deep. And one of the things that she brought forward, one of the things that she highlighted for me, because I was in that, I did take the related class to the service that she was providing in the call, but I'm just not able to go in as deep as Amy is. So I understood that I have a lot going on in my 12th house, which is the spiritual. Amy, you can explain it better, right? But it's really like the spiritual houses. What do you have going on spiritually? And I already knew that I had a lot going on in that house, and that already was such a great confirmation for me that I'm on the right path. But what Amy shared with me regarding like money and spirituality, just it again, it just created this other kind of beautiful confirmation and shift in me because, as I said, I have a lot going on in my 12th house, but I've always been really spiritual as well. I'm deeply spiritual. Anybody who knows me knows that about me. And I know that I'm called to work with women in the area of money and wealth. And the reason for that is well, it's in my blueprint, but also and this is probably why naturally I'm just really good with numbers. I'm really good with money. A little bit about my story. I put myself through school on my own, graduated with not a lot of debt, $40,000 worth of debt. Some of it was forgiven, but I was able to repay the rest pretty quickly. And I was able to create on my own with my husband, with divine guidance, universal support, with spirituality for sure. But I was able to create a multi seven-figure net worth, like to create like a position where my husband and I are now multimillionaires. And even that just seems kind of funny and silly to say like that. And anybody who knows me knows that the whole thing actually started off as um, kind of a fun contest between my brother and I, who was going to be a millionaire first. But it all just felt really easy for me. And I just kind of assumed that I'm very naive, I think, and innocent in some ways. I thought everybody else was doing the same. I thought everybody else was reading financial books and doing the same thing because, according to the financial books, by the time you get to this age, you should have this much, and by the time you get to this age, you should have reached this benchmark. And I just assumed everybody was in the same position. So and anytime, so then I would try to. I didn't. I'm a fairly private person, so for a long time I didn't share. But then when I started sharing, I would either encounter a lot of like resistance from people not wanting to talk about their money, like it's this like almost like rude or it's a faux pas. Or if people did talk about it, I started understanding that not everybody was in that same financial position. But but for me, the two spirit, getting back to spirituality and money. So when I was interacting with people with regards to money, I was learning that people saw it as two kind of conflicting forces that were at odds with each other. If you could picture, if you could picture money on one hand and spirituality on the other, it was like two forces that were clashing against each other. But for me, it was never that experience. For me, it's two elements that are sitting in the same column, and the quality of the energy is the same. Whether I am sitting down to do my breath work and meditation practice, or whether I'm showing up in my business in service, in devotion to the women that I'm here to work with, that I'm called to work with, whether I'm working on their finances or my finances, or whether I'm at church. If I go to church and I step into a church for mass, that sanctity, that devotion, that reverence, can you feel it? Like just that, the beauty of that energy, to me, it's all exactly the same. And I'm so grateful to Amy for doing my reading and bringing up spirituality and how deeply spiritual money is, because it really reconciled something in me, Amy. So I just wanted to say thank you. And can you talk about that? Can you talk about money and spirituality?
Yeah, I'm just, oh, I was so happy that that reading resonated in the way that it did. It was such a joy to do that. And yeah, like I feel what you're saying. I do feel that sanctity. I feel the same. It is all in the same column for me too. And for a long time, I thought it wasn't because of the messaging we received. Because so basically, this is my perception, is that money, the true consciousness of money is simply a consciousness of, oh, how would I put it in a way that's not too abstract? It is, we could take the analogy of the genie from Aladdin. It's an energy that wants to help us create magic on earth. It wants to help us create amazing things. Money does not want to work against us. Money does not want to deprive us. Money does not want to control us. Money has been, you could say money has been enslaved by, the whatever, people who would like to selfishly retain control over everyone and everything on earth. They want to amass all of the power for themselves. And money is one expression of power. They are not only after money, they are also, enslaving our consciousness and other forms of power and agency that we have. But they've enslaved money. And it's almost like it's like being mad at the genie because the genie has been, enslaved to the lamp. And like when we resent money and we see it as a tool of the 3D matrix and nothing more, then we push it away because as spiritual people, as spiritually awakened and spiritually motivated people, which I'm sure everybody listening is, to their own personal degree, we don't, it's like when we hear that like um, the idea that all rich people are bad, I automatically think of you, Dagmara, when people say things about like rich people. And I remember one time last year I posted celebrating that I was about to cross $1 million in revenue in my business. And somebody said, somebody commented, some random person commented, and trolled me out to their audience and essentially said like, "Oh, wow, great. You've become a millionaire helping the rich get richer. How brave." And I was like, that is the weirdest perspective. First of all, you have no idea who I help. A whole multitude of people at varying levels and varying different relationships with money. Second of all, why are rich people automatically bad? That's insane because if you think that, then that means in order to be a good person, you can never receive money. You can't hold money. And the programming is so deep. But money is just, yeah, it's this beautiful consciousness that simply wants to support us. And it like the the more we dissolve that resentment and we bring money and spirituality into the same column, the more we set money free and we set ourselves free and we bring ourselves into alignment and allegiance with this beautiful energy so that we can just create. Like I think about when I think about like I've crossed $1 million revenue now in my business and I'm so proud of myself and I can't wait to like someday have my first $1 million a year. And I think about when I get there and when I have like when I receive this money, I'm a match to receiving all this money. Yes, I will definitely spend a whole bunch of it on myself and my family, but also like I fully want to open an indoor playground in my community and charge like $10 a pop for admission. Like I would love to do that and have like free drop-in hour on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for moms who have, babies and need to socialize. Like, you know, support an entire animal shelter, like donate to causes we believe in. There's so many amazing things we can do with money. Become an angel investor or like an angel donor and just randomly support a single mother so that she doesn't have to work 3 jobs just to keep her children fed and housed. Like that's what you do when you allow yourself to receive money. That's what money wants to do with us.
100%. What you're talking about is the concept of money as an amplifier. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss. People don't realize that money amplifies, right? If you're, if you're somebody who gives money a bad name, if you don't have reverence for it and you're just quote unquote a bad person, then that'll just be amplified. But if you're somebody who's loving and who comes from a place of servitude, then that your work will just, the more money you have, the more money you make, that your good work will just be amplified. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Money in the hands of good people just it just creates more good in the world. And when you talk about having a $1 million year, what I think about is just how many people you're going to bless with your services because it's an energetic exchange, right? So for you to make $1 million, imagine how many people's lives you're going to bless and transform. That's what I think. That's what I see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're such a high priestess of wealth. You are.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just love working with women and helping them, holding space for them to work through what they need to work through in order to have the type of wealth that I've not even created. It's really, I received it and I've just been able to steward over it because I was ready for it, right? And I just want that for other women. Um, I want women to have the life that they desire. I want women to have the life that I have. I had this desire to hold my boys close to me. So I was able to, through having my own business and being able to steward my money in a discerning, responsible way, it created so much freedom for me. I was able to have my 3 boys. My oldest is now 20 and in his second year of university. I spent almost his entire life with him, and so did my husband, and I still worked, I still ran a business, I still left to go and see clients at certain points, but really the majority of the time I homeschooled them through kindergarten to grade 6 and then kind of released them to online schooling after that. But that's just so it's just so invaluable. And to be able to travel, right? And just anything else that you want to be able to, I just got back from a few weeks ago from visiting my sister because I was able to take my business with me, take my oldest son, picked him up from college and took him with me, and we went and spent time with my sister. So there's just so much freedom with it. So I just want that. I want to support others, obviously, that want the same. Um, the other thing that I wanted to share a little bit about and kind of get your take on it is that just kind of how I work with people in terms of how I view, to me, when I look at numbers, to me, numbers make a sense. I feel they make sense and they tell a story. So when I look at numbers, I think kind of the movie The Matrix, right? And how the code is just running, being able to decode it. So I feel the same way. Like I've always resonated with numbers. Numbers tell a story. Sometimes, on our call, I'll say to you, like, I love the way your numbers are looking. And I just don't mean like the final numbers, but just how beautifully they line up. And I'll find the synchronicity in there and I'll find the angel numbers and I'll see the ascending and the descending. It's beautiful. But they also tell a story. And what I like to do is, and I always say, like, numbers don't lie. And I love it. And so one of the things that I do is I will take the numbers and I will, create pictures with them in the forms of graphs for you, or I'll look at the numbers and I'll tell you what I'm seeing. So I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about that. For example, how I created like for example, like the sources of revenue report for you, right? How I took the offers and how I analyzed them and I put them into like a beautiful, colorful, rainbow-like, pie graph for you. Or how I'll do a bar graph, to track kind of performance and how we'll talk about energetically if that's matching what you're feeling. And you have an amazing memory and you actually energetically, you're able to describe what's financially going on in your business, which I find really remarkable. I'm really impressed by that skill set of yours. Which just goes to show that you're not, that you're, the programming that you picked up in grade school is so outdated and it's completely inaccurate about your ability to receive and hold wealth, right? But and then I was going to also say, yeah, so there, and then I also, when I'm tracking, like as I said, your performance, or also like looking to the future and doing projections and just using like graphical depictions to represent that. What do you think of that? Like, is that helpful? What's your experience with that, with using that as a strategy?
Oh yeah, it's super helpful for me because I am a very visual person. I'm a very colorful person. And so looking at spreadsheets, I find it very stressful because it's not that I completely can't read them and make sense of them, but I don't have that ability to decode the numbers and see this story. And so not, yeah, like the way that data is spread out across a spreadsheet it feels very distant to me and very, very inaccessible, like challenging to really capture and make sense of. And then you so kindly translate it into pie charts and bar graphs, and then you take the extra time to make it colorful, like rainbow, like all the colors of the rainbow, because you know that that is going to like it's going to capture my attention and it's going to feel familiar to me, and I'm going to like it's almost like that I'm going to feel more intimacy with that data because I'm like, oh, I understand now. Like, oh, I see myself. Like I see that these are my numbers
Mhm.
because they're represented in a way that's colorful and visual. So I can, yeah, it's almost like recognizing a piece of yourself, if that makes sense. It's immensely helpful. It's one of the, I mean, everything you do is so helpful. I could go on and on and on, Dagmara. Like whatever you want me to talk about, I'm so happy to gush about it, truly.
No, I love that I created the sources of revenue report for you because I've never done that for anybody else, but I think that just kind of speaks to like I don't know if it's the magic of the container or just my intuition and my ability to kind of like meditate on and lean into how can I be of highest service to you? Like what will resonate with you? Because sometimes I'll get off a call and I'll be like, okay, something's not clicking. And I'm like, what would make it land? Or what would be helpful? And that sources of revenue report, I came up with that for you. And I've actually, since you applied it to my own business, which I think is so cool, right? Um, and then the other thing that I did, which I think is kind of cool too, is I created the vision doc for you.
Mhm.
And what I think the cool story about that one, I remember sitting down with you because at first I just called it something generic like Cosmic Oracle or Amy Belair, and then I remember sitting with you, and you did not know that I have my own doc where I have my money date where I track everything, and my doc is called Vision. and or maybe it's the vision, vice versa, and I remember sitting with you and I remember asking you, what do you want to call your document, because this will be our landing spot every time we meet. It'll kind of track everything, and I remember you closing your eyes and saying, I want you to call it the vision. And I thought that was so cool, to just illustrates just how you can use beautiful energetics to when you're working with money, just to make it a little bit sweeter, a little bit better. Um, the other thing I wanted to bring up was the wallpaper I created for you, and how people can use something like that, kind of as a helpful tool for themselves, and again, I used really your color scheme. I used the beautiful artwork that you use in your business, how I use that as kind of a backdrop. So what I did was I created kind of a digital wallpaper for Amy, and I talked about like, what are our goals? Right? And then taking just little thumbnails of the different financial, like the different financial, the word is evading me now. Like the financial depictions, right? Because I track different things for Amy, whether it's, like a current net worth snapshot, or are we trying to repay something, or what are our future projections? What are our big goals? Where are we trying to go? Creating a roadmap. So, one of the things I do obviously is I create like a digital roadmap, which is bigger for my clients, but then I also just created like a digital wallpaper for you where you get to look at that every day. What do you think of it? Do you want to share anything with the audience, on that, how they can use that in their own life?
Yeah, again, because I'm such a visual person, this really as a strategy is like it's fun and it's supportive and very, very helpful for me to remain connected to A, my money, B, the goals, and C, the vision. Because to have it all collected in one like beautiful, I don't even remember the format of it, but
Mhm.
basically like Dagmar made it so that I can put it as the screensaver wallpaper, like that's what she means by wallpaper, on my computer, so that I can look at it's just there all the time and I can see it and I can connect with it and I can remember what my goals are. And also it's like it's beautiful, which for me makes such a difference. And I have a unique aesthetic. Like, I don't really vibe with, like, there are a bazillion printables that and templates you could get off of Etsy. I've looked, believe me, to do your financial tracking. And I'm not really like a pinks and golds kind of girl. Nothing against it. It's just not what feels resonant for me. But I do need it to look I needed to hold my imagination. Like at my core, I'm just this like little girl in my bedroom, like imagining my big grand future, you know? So that's the part of me that needs to be brought on board so that my whole self is engaged. And to have it be created with my some of my visuals that you lifted from one of my programs. Again, it helps me to be like, oh, this is me. These are my goals. These are my numbers. This is where I'm going. It's very, very helpful for me. And my goal, I'm super comfortable sharing that although I have um, really solidified receiving money, I have not solidified holding money. So this is a different energetic pattern that I'm working on, dissolving whatever blocks. So I've received a ton of money and it's all like, phew, it all just leaves my field. And I'm working on holding it in my field now. And my goal for the year is holding it and also repaying debt. And I'm really comfortable with, like, I don't have any shame about having debt. I dissolved that, and I'm really glad that I started my business and I showed myself that even 6 figures of debt does not have to hold anybody back. It didn't hold me back. It's like I'm so glad it didn't hold me back because it would have taken me forever to pay it off at the pace and the level of money consciousness I had at the time. But I'm just at a place where I'm really excited. It feels exciting and motivating to just be like, oh, I can just dissolve this now. Like I don't have to, I've learned what I've needed to learn and I don't have to hold it anymore. And I'm very motivated in an exciting, non-fear-based way to repay the debt. And having that wallpaper that you created helps me to stay like, aligned with that goal.
I love that. I love that so much. I know the other thing that you said is you said, and I think you're speaking to it now, it's just that the work, although you and I have been working together for a while, and I actually can't even remember how long we've been working together now.
I think
You-
it's 2 years. I think we
I think
started in 2023.
I think so. That feels about right. Um, we've been working together for 2 years. I love what you said, which is that you feel like we're just at the beginning. And the reason I like that so much is because I I think it just speaks to the possibility of the work that you can do and the kind of the goals and the things that you can achieve. I think a lot of people, when they think about finances, they think just about this really the starting point, the day to day of, tracking your finances, the bookkeeping, the paying the debt, filing taxes. But so a lot of people don't really move beyond that. I think people just feel very intimidated by investments. They think like it's this whole other world and it's not for me, it's for the rich. And really, it's just simply not true. And I want really all the listeners to just really um, hear my message and to just really be able to feel into the energy of it and believe it for yourself. I tell you, investing is easy. It is so easy. You know, really all you're doing is you're opening up an account. The same way that you open up a bank account, you're opening up an investment account. You're transferring money into it. You just need to decide what type of investment account are you opening. Are you opening up a tax sheltered account? Is it with pre-tax, post-tax dollars? Are you leveraging tax programs or not? It's not, I feel like I probably need to just do more posts about that for people to better understand that, to dispel any kind of anything about it that, that's maybe blocking people from moving forward with that. But you're opening up these accounts. And that's just the first step. After that, you transfer money into it, and only then do you decide what are you going to invest in. It's like three separate steps. And don't let step number three, feeling like you don't know what you're going to invest in, stop you from moving forward with step number one, right?
Hmm.
So, um, like, what do you think about all that? What is kind of your perspective about, what kind of now that we've kind of gone through kind of the more dense work, like what are you looking forward to? Like I described it, I described it as kind of like the way that I see it is that you and I kind of like have climbed over the last 2 years, kind of this big kind of mountain of like density where at times I was literally like smudging before I would start working on the things to ensure that I would, because I did experience the density as well. I cannot help but to. And I'm just excited. I share your excitement that we're kind of about to embark on this next chapter, you and I.
Yeah, well, I'll specify too that the particular density that we spent basically almost 2 years. Like I think we started working together in May of 2023, so it's been almost 2 years. That density was basically what happened is because I have that, impression from my childhood that I'm not good with money and not good with numbers and feel very easily stressed out and overwhelmed. At the feeling like I don't know how to do this, and so I just don't want to look at it. What happened was I, I wasn't making enough money in the first year of my business to need to track it too closely. And I knew that I could just everything was happening through PayPal. And so in my head, like I didn't in Canada, um, you don't need to have an LLC. You don't have to register your business until you are making more than $30,000 a year. I just didn't do any of that because I didn't know how and I was intimidated. And that's fine until in 2021, I had that quantum leap out of nowhere and was suddenly making um, five-figure months and making six-figure years and never dropped below that, never dropped below a six-figure year since. I've just continued to increase my income. And so for like 2020, 2021, and 2022, I had not only had I not filed my taxes, but I had absolutely zero bookkeeping, like nothing. It was just a total disaster. And the density was my feeling of overwhelm and my shame at like that it was so overwhelming and I was so disorganized and I didn't know what to do. And it's amazing. It tells you, it really is a testament to how that like opening up to receiving money and truly dissolving your resistance to money, it works because even when you can't hold the money, like it keeps coming in because you're open to it. But I couldn't hold it because I had nowhere. It's almost like if you imagine a flood zone, like I had no channels for it to flow into at all. It would just flood and disappear. It would just land in whatever random account and be gone. It was crazy. And I had no idea where it was going. And I had so much shame around that. So we worked through that. And one thing I do want to mention is for our first year of working together, we would open every session, you would guide me through some breath work. And that was so unbelievably supportive in helping me repattern my nervous system around those trauma responses so that I no longer disassociate when I'm looking at money. Because I was fully disassociating. Like I just was so overwhelmed I couldn't handle it and felt so much shame that I would like look at the screen and not even register what was there. So that was immensely helpful. And now all of that density, we're caught up on all the taxes. Like we're just about to submit the 2024 taxes on time. And it's a beautiful feeling. And so now moving onward and upward, as they say, I think that investing is incredible. And I am so excited to get started in investing. And I dearly wish that I had started earlier. And my grandfather and his two brothers, they were born to Serbian immigrants. Their mother never learned to speak English. Their dad worked in what's it called? The smelter in Sudbury. He used to hop box cars in Northern Ontario to try and find jobs, and they lived in a one-room cabin, and he hunted rabbits, and that's how they survived in their initial years here. They were from an extremely poor family, and that is who I inherited my money scarcity primarily from. But they all, when they died, they had multi-million dollar net worths, and it was from all from investing. They just got jobs and invested, and they just would reinvest and reinvest and reinvest. And it was amazing for me to learn that. And I wish they had passed that information on. But regardless, I like to hold it in my blueprint. And the thing I think from a spiritual perspective about investing, for anybody in my audience who's listening, that we can totally think, well, yeah, but the stock market, and like I have a lot of conspiracy people in my audience whom I love, shout out to all of you, and we can totally think like, oh, but all like Disney is blah and Tesla is blah and all these things. And like, it's like you're just supporting a corrupt system. I like to think of it as no, we are energetically money laundering. Like these systems are already in place. We are allowing ourselves to amass our own wealth, which again is our creational power by take like cycling the resources from that and through that. Like why would we just leave all that wealth to people who don't care about the planet? Why wouldn't we allow ourselves to grow our own wealth so that we can do amazing, wonderful things and just help to liberate the consciousness of money and the consciousness of humanity? That's what I think. I'm super excited about investing.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't like Tesla, you don't have to invest in Tesla. Invest in the things that you want to invest in.
I mean, that's so true. But I also
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
there are some stocks that make sense to
Yes.
invest in, and
Yes.
why not? Like why would we on some principle, like you exist
Hmm.
in the world, deal with
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Like take what's already here
Hmm.
and allow yourself to be an agent of transmutation and alchemy, where
Hmm.
you're taking what already exists and you are turning it into something beautiful that benefits like the like contributes to the universal prosperity of everyone and everything here.
I agree. And to me, it just feels easy. Like it just feels easy. Compounding interest, reinvesting the dividend payouts, it all just feels easy to me. And I'm not really interested in hard anymore, really. If it can be easy, I would rather use my attention, my intention, my energy to just work with women and to liberate them, and I'd rather just reinvest my stock and send. The way that I think of it is every day, like my portfolio is kind of its own entity, right? The investment properties I hold, they're their own entity. And these things, I go to work every day, but they go to work as well, right? So it's like it has a life of its own. It goes to work and it makes me money and brings money back. And that just creates space for me to be able to work more and with women and also to be home more, to cook food for my family that they love, to homeschool my son. I don't know. Do all the things. Go walk the beach.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's kind of like, sure, we can all go grind it out the hard way on
Mhm,
principle of
mhm,
our, air quotes, spiritual ideals, but really all we're doing is when we do that is we're rebelling against um we're rebelling against our perception again of like a resentment towards money and a resentment towards financial systems, and but that just keeps us imprisoned, like it keeps
mhm,
us
mhm,
small. That's, I
mhm,
mean, if you think about the dark consciousness that does try to control things, that's what they want. They want
mhm,
us to grind away and spend
mhm,
all of our beautiful life force energy away from our homes, away from our families, away from
mhm,
our important relationships, and not in
mhm,
alignment with our soul purpose, and
mhm.
not feeling resourced enough to create amazing things in the world.
100%. 100%. I remember when I first came onto the spiritual scene, and it's that programming runs deep, this whole idea that you can't be spiritual and have money. You know what I mean? Like you can't look too dressed up. You can't drive a car that's too nice. You can't have a nice pedicure. I remember my spiritual teacher, the first time I went to the ashram, she was laughing. She's like, is that a pedicure set and toe separators in your luggage? I'm like, yes, it is. I never saw the two, as I said, at odds. And my first spiritual teacher, she was a fashion designer from Montreal, and I love that about her. Like I think she was the first one that taught me that those two things don't need to be at all. We can, or at odds with each other. We can sit down and do our spiritual practice, and then we will go, shopping at like a designer sample sale, like. Oh.
Yeah, well, I'll say too, like one of the things I'm really proud of is that last year I purchased a brick and mortar baby and children's boutique. And the reason I purchased it really was it used to be owned by my sister, and she opened such a beautiful space and a beautiful store. And I could see what an enhancement to the community it is. And she is just at a place in life where she had two children under 3 and a full-time corporate job. And like she just couldn't hold all of that. And I knew that if nobody else bought it, it was going to close. And I could see what a deficit that would be to the community. And it's really interesting because I never set out in my life to, like, I've never been interested in retail specifically or fashion specifically, but I freaking love babies and children and families and community. But I just submitted a huge order to a designer in Spain of beautiful children's clothing. And it's the most amazing feeling to be able to support that designer. And it can sound so superficial, but it's not, because at its core, who created that brand? It's somebody who just loves design and loves clothing and loves the artistic expression and loves children and like combined all of that and had the moxie basically to create their own line, their own brand, and build a business around it. And that business continues. And it's so beautiful to be able to support it. And yeah, like really, when you think about it, what we're supporting with our money, so often what we have the option to support is other people's the fullness of their expression, the fullness of their soul purpose. And what a beautiful thing. And sometimes that is a material expression. And I mean, we're here in a human form. We're not here to float around as like ethereal spirit beings, not taking part in any of the pleasures and the joys of this
Mhm.
sensory world. We're here to be immersed in it and to revel in the beauty.
I love that. I love that so much. Anything else you want to add? This has been so good.
I
Any
guess
final
I'll
words? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say, just to, like to, love on you some more is like, I I just want to say what a joy it has been. Like I know a lot of the time, especially in I don't want to call it this industry, but like what we could call the coaching industry or the online services industry. A lot of the time, people are looking for like a quick fix, a quick solution. Like they either want one call, like one consultation, or they want a 3-month package and that's it. And sometimes it's possible that that's all somebody needs. But for everybody listening, I just want, like, I have no regrets around working with you and have every intention of continuing to work with you because it's like I said, this is actually an area of support that I feel I need. I do not believe I could have arrived beyond that trauma and that disassociative response by myself. I think I would have continued to create more and more overwhelm because I was kind of stuck in it. And being able to work with it as a long-term project has also really helped my nervous system to settle and calm down and stop chasing. I call it the rapid cycling. Like sometimes this also happens, well, in any industry, but like where you're either living paycheck to paycheck or month to month, or in the online world where you're like thinking about your income in terms of how much you brought in that month. And I've shifted due to us working together for almost 2 years with no plans on wrapping it up anytime in the foreseeable future. It's also helped me to settle into my nervous system and understand the process of wealth creation as a longer cycle thing where it feels like softer and more comfortable in my body. And it's not such a like an acute urgency, like bills need to get paid now. What am I going to do to bring it in now? And like it's not that I never feel that, but there's something so beneficial um, to creating a long-standing relationship and continuing to work on this area. And like, having put in the time it took to get through all of that density and to now be at the beginning where it starts to feel lighter and we get to the fun stuff, as it
Mhm.
were, and to continue to be on this path of like healing and repatterning my own relationship with money and wealth through working with you.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for sharing that perspective. I hope others find it helpful and useful. And I agree with you. I feel like for myself as well, just speaking about like my own experience and other clients, I think that initially there is that getting to know each other phase and it can feel a little bit wobbly or it can feel a little bit whatever adjective you want to use, whether it can feel a little bit disorganized and we need to organize it or just trying to figure out how to work together. And then you settle into a groove, you settle into an energy and you soften, right? Like you relax and you soften and you realize that this is um it's a journey. It sounds a little cheesy, but it's like it's a journey, it's a process and softening into it, relaxing and just realizing that it's just our money. It needs our attention, it needs tending, it needs stewarding. And when you honor it and you respect it, it has um no choice. But really that's all it does. It's there and it will just grow. It will grow. Yeah, and be there to support you. So, do you want to share with people how they can find you? Because for anybody who has not worked with Amy, Amy is one, she is the clearest channel, honestly, for me. I was going to say one of, but honestly, I am being completely frank and honest. I have not met a channel who is clearer than Amy, and her energy is so clear and pure and so loving that if you have not worked with her, I would highly recommend it. Like highly, highly, highly. As I said, I have been on the spiritual path for quite a long time, 20 plus years, but she has been responsible for some of the biggest transformations in my own personal life. So I highly recommend you work with her. And Amy, would you like to share how people can find you and what are some of your latest offers that you would like to share?
Oh, I love you. Thank you so much. I the easiest place to find me is at Cosmic Oracle on Instagram. So it's cosmic.oracle. And I also have a podcast called Third Eye Awakening, as well as an energy report called Akashic Guidance for Ascending Souls. And those can be found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And I do have a website. It's been under construction for over a year, but it's still like it's worth checking into every now and then because it actually is so beautiful and I can't wait to reveal it when all the work is done. But that URL is amybelair.com. And my current offering is really, I'm super excited to open up round 3 of my Akashic apprenticeship and certification. And this is a program for those who desire to be Akashic Records readers, channels, oracles, and healers, and to really be able to fully open up and activate your channel so that you can bring through this information and this energy in your unique manner and create a business or a service around it. That feels in total alignment with your soul. So stay tuned for information about that.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And thank you, dear listeners, for listening. And until next time, I love you.